What's up everybody, finally back at it with some Dragonflight Beta content, and this time we're taking a look at the new and improved Beast Mastery Hunter. I'll be going over what's been added, what's been gutted, and my overall thoughts on the new talent trees. Keep in mind this is beta testing, so a lot of things can change, and a lot of this will be my personal opinion. So let's get into it, starting with the class tree portion and the fun damage talents. Now there's quite a few new talents here and some borrowed talents from survival as well as marksman. Like Alpha Predator, which gives us one more charge on kill command, which greatly eases up our rotation, as you don't have to instantly press it as soon as it goes off cooldown or when you get a KC reset from stuff like Killer Cobra. Or you could go for Killer Instinct instead of Alpha Predator to add execute to your kill commands. You also have things like Master Marksman, Serpent Sting, and Hydra's Bite or Latent Poison injectors. Master Marksman, if you crit with a range ability, you leave a dot for 15% of that ability's damage. Nothing major for BMS, you don't do a ton of damage with your own range abilities. Serpent Sting gives us, well, Serpent Sting, and Hydra's Bite makes it hit 2 additional targets as well as increases its damage done by 20%. This is great for AoE and tons of fun to play with, and makes it extremely simple to get Serpent Sting up on tons and tons of targets. And then you could go for Latent Poison injectors instead. Serpent Sting damage applies Latent Poison, which stacks up to 10 times. Barbed Shot consumes all stacks and deals X amount of nature damage to that target per stack. So you'll either have to choose between either spreading Serpent with Hydra's Bite or dealing more damage to fewer targets with Latent Poison. Now I can see Latent Poison being great on low target cleave, as you can stack it up on your cleave targets and then just throw a Barbed Shot anytime they reach 10 stacks. Imagine Prototype Pantheon or Lords of Dread and Sepulchre. Smash one of them, stack Latent Poison on the other, and then just swap at 10 stacks. But spreading tons of Serpent Stings with Hydra's Bite is way more fun, but would be less useful on a 2-target encounter. Now, to add on to that, you could also spec into Serrated Shots, which increases your Serpent Sting and bleed damage by 20%, and then 40% when your target is below 30% HP. Hey-hoo! More execute! And works on cleave, as again you can spread tons and tons of Serpent Stings as well as target swap on every Barbed Shot to have multiple bleed dots running, which you should already be doing, but it incentivizes multi-dotting with barbed even more. Moving on to another end part of the tree, we also have access to Explosive Shot, not much to say, press button, do damage. However, anything that adds to BM's toolkit or rotation for AoE is greatly appreciated. Having more stuff to press than multi-shot every 6 seconds is great. But as always, it's in the hands of the tuning gods. Now, you'll also be able to get Death Chakra, sadly without the Covenant Lego, which made it apply Explosive Shot as well. It does, however, affect all your damage and pet damage done to targets hit, which is a welcome addition. Hopefully it's less buggy if we do end up speccing into it. It looks dope, it's a fun button to press. Now you can also talent into Nessingwary's Trapping Apparatus, which is a reworked version of the Shadowlands legendary. Anytime you successfully freezing trap an enemy, gain 20 focus and increase focus gained by 50% for 5 seconds. The big issue here is in the wording whenever you successfully freezing trap, meaning it won't work on a lot of mobs or bosses, and it doesn't seem to work off high explosive trap nor steel trap or anything like that, or it doesn't. And personally, I hate throwing traps as BM, I really dislike the flare Lego in Shadowlands. However, if it's reworked a bit to always work or work with multiple traps, that'd be great. I mean, being able to proc it off steel trap would make a lot more sense and would make it more into a pseudo cooldown of sorts. Pop trap, do damage, get focus. And it would fit into our toolkit a lot better, and you're currently forced to take Nessingwary's to get Steel Trap. So if we end up using Steel Trap, we're forced to take a potentially dead talent, which is not awesome. So please let Steel Trap proc it, I mean for goodness sake. It's a trap! And lastly, for the new damage talents, there's Arctic Bola Cobra Shot. Has a chance to fling a Arctic Bola at your target, which deals a bit of damage and slows the target by 20%, and it also bounces up to 2 times. Nothing that greatly impacts your rotation, but a nice addition to passive-ish low target cleave. Can potentially be great for low target cleave with a more Cobra KC spam oriented build that I'll touch on a bit later. Now, as far as the rest of the class tree goes, it's filled with different utility-based talents and defensives, so you'll find new things like Hunter's Agility, Agile Movement, and High Explosive Trap. Hunter's Agility gives you 6% damage reduction to AoEs. And as a squishy hunter, hey, I'll take it. Agile movement gives you 3% movement speed up to 6%, which I mean, I love movement speed, but it's not really like we need it. Even after losing soul shape, we're still quite speedy. High explosive trap used to be a PvP only talent, but has now been given to all hunters. Can be extremely useful under the right conditions. Casters in sanguine pools comes to mind, or to properly mess up a pull and annoy the living hell out of randoms in pugs. Imagine, if you will, a massive pull in a dungeon. Your DK tank smiles and hits mass grip. You smile a bit more and hit high explosive trap. Now don't do that unless there's pure hate in your heart. For more pro hunter tips, subscribe to my Patreon. Following this, we have some returning talents and reworked stuff. Our Shadowlands Conduit, Rejuvenating Wind, which adds a hot component to your acceleration. And Survival of the Fittest is no longer tied to our pet. Yay! It's now a class talent and can be further upgraded to either reduce damage taken by an additional 20%, so 40%, or 30 sec less cooldown and it lasts 2 seconds longer. This is overall fantastic. Not only do we now have a defensive cooldown that isn't tied to our pet, and we can choose depending on content if we want a stronger defensive or a longer lasting defensive with shorter cooldown. No longer will hunters accidentally press Bloodlust when they thought they were popping a defensive. Is that just me? On top of this, Tenacity pets now get a 20% increased max health CD to it and the hunter instead of Survival of the Fittest. So, hey, more defensives. Score! To tie in with this, Born to be Wild now reduces the cooldown of Survival of the Fittest as well as Cheetah and Turtle. So, if you spec into CDR as well as Born to be Wild, you can get Survival of the Fittest down to 2 minutes. There's also a new talent that's not fully implemented yet, as they're working on it, which is Sentinel, and its upgrade Sentinel's Perception and Wisdom. Now, Sentinel, which is the new resonating arrow, if you will, it is not yet implemented, so all of this might be removed and changed for something else entirely. Now, Sentinel, so you call forth a Sentinel Owl to targeted location. Your attacks ignore line of sight in this area, and every 200 focus spent grants you 1 sec of Sentinel when you cast it up to max 12 seconds. Now, the upgrades, Perception makes it so that all party members ignore line of sight in that area, and Wisdom, your party takes 10% reduced nature damage, and it removes 1 poison and disease effect from a party member every second. Now, as for the line of sight portion of this, it has some niche uses. When it's useful, it's really useful, but more often than not, you will get very little value from this in a PvE setting. But imagine something like Jailer Phase 1, or if you did Ashara in Eternal Palace. Being able to cast out of line of sight would have been awesome for some of the overlaps, but for most fights it's gonna be absolutely useless. Now, giving it to the entire party on the other hand changes absolutely nothing, as it's really only useful again on a handful of occasions. Unless they make all the new dungeons and raids with tons and tons of LOS mechanics, in which case, well, go hunters. Now, the 10% less nature damage taken and cleanse effect, however, can have a lot of uses in PvE, most noticeably in M+, as having a party-wide cleanse can make a lot of things a ton easier. Think last boss in Plaguefall and Tyrannical, pop this bad boy and cleanse away during Infectious Rain. Overall, I personally really like this tree. It could use some love in some places like Nessingwary's Trapping, but overall there's choices to be made depending on encounter, content as well as build, as it can somewhat impact your Beast Mastery talent choices, or vice versa with the class tree. If you go for a more KC centered build, having Alpha Predator is great. Going for a more bleed dot supported build will go Serpent Sting serrated shots for more dot damage and execute dot damage. Choices. And we'll touch back a bit on that part during the Beast Mastery tree. So, Beast Mastery tree, what's new here? Well, a lot, and spoilers, most of it is kinda great. My personal favorite of the bunch is the brand spanking new Kill Cleave. Kill Command also strikes nearby enemies for 50% of damage dealt, which is just amazing. It doesn't greatly change our rotation, but it feels way less passive in a sense, as you no longer just juggle Beast Cleave and go on with your day. There's so many new talents that let us improve Kill Command's damage, charges, as well as ways to reset it, so you'll be able to play around that rather than just me press multi-shot, done. Then there's Call of the Wild and its upgrade. It's a new shiny big CD for hunters that borrows inspiration from Mist of Pandaria's Stampede. 3-minute cooldown, you sound the Call of the Wild. build, summoning 2 of your active pets for 20 seconds. During this time, a random pet from your stable will appear every 4 seconds to smack your target. So not only does this do a ton of damage, it also allows you to get all of your pet passives up during it, so movement speed, leech, max HP, you'll be the speediest leechy beef around. And when upgraded, you can get either Bloody Frenzy or Wild Instincts. Now, Bloody Frenzy, while Call of the Wild is active, Barbed Shot affects all your summoned pets, which should include dire beasts. More on that in a bit. An issue with this though, that they hopefully fix, but probably won't, is that pets summoned via Call of the Wild starts with 0 stacks of barbed and they only last for 6 seconds. So getting 3 stacks of them is pretty much not gonna happen. Now, Wild Instincts on the other hand, during Call of the Wild, Barbed Shot has a 25% chance to gain a charge anytime focus is spent. So you'll pretty much be able to spam barbed non-stop during it, which might not sound awesome at first, but have no fear! There's a new talent called Brutal Companion. Whenever barbed reaches 3 stacks on a target, or when you refresh the 3rd stack, your pet will use its special attack and deal 100% bonus damage. And specking into the Bleed and Dot talent serrated shots in the class tree, you can do some insane amount of damage on multiple targets during this by having Serpent Sting on multiple targets, then target swapping on every barb to get that bleed all over the place. So here's to hoping that's a play for dungeons, at least I do. Now on the topic of cooldowns, Aspect of the Wild is now a talent and has been reworked. You now fire off a Cobra Shot on your target and 1 additional enemy, and for the next 20 seconds your Cobra Shot will hit 1 additional target and cost 10 less focus. Can be upgraded with Master Handler or Snakebite. Master Handler, each temporary beast summoned reduces the cooldown of Aspect of the Wild. Or Snakebite, Cobra Shot deals 30% more damage during Aspect of the Wild. Now the Master Handler cooldown reduction procs of another talent, Dire Beast, which I'll go over in a bit. But as of testing, it doesn't feel impactful at all, but it might be different if you make a build centered around it. However, unless the CDR from Master Handler is increased to where you'll get a noticeable increase in Aspect of the Wild usage, you'll most likely go Snakebite if you pick Aspect of the Wild. Unless there's fights where you need to have your cooldown up for specific timings, like Sludge Fist, where for example if a Fire Mage was able to reduce Combust cooldown enough to have it on all pillars, their damage would skyrocket compared to if not. Even if the current CDR on Master Handler is low, there could be fights where it's still extremely useful if you're able to get Aspect to line up with say a boss spawning an ad or damage taken increased phases. The list goes on. Overall, the new Aspect of the Wild gives us access to better low target cleave and possibly a more Cobra Shot spammy build for low target cleave encounters, utilizing stuff like Arctic Bola, Killer Cobra and Kill Cleave, and possibly Nestingwary Trap for focus gain if it gets fixed, so you can just spam Cobra Shots and kill commands on 2-3 target cleave, and it's definitely more interesting than the old Aspect. Moving on, few Legos gone talent. In for the Kill, which is the new Flayed Shot, Kill command has a 10% chance to reset cooldown off Kill Shot and allows you to cast Kill Shot on the target regardless of HP. And then there's Flame Waker's Cobra Sting, 2-point talent. Cobra Shot has a 10 or 20% chance to make your next kill command consume no focus. Again, fits in well with the Cobra KC spam oriented builds, depending on how our overall focus gain will be. But it sure feels nice when it procs on a Cobra Shot when you're low on focus, you can just insta kill command and go back to snake spamming. Then you have the, here we go, Kapla Eridun War Order, 2-point talent. Barbed Shot deals increased damage and applying Barbed Shot has a 5 to 10% chance to reset kill command. Could possibly be great combined with Call of the Wild Barbed Shot spam for AoE, but also great overall for cleaving, as again you'll be multi-dotting with Barbed and get more KCs for more kill cleave spam. Plus I love proc stuff, I don't know why, I see shiny button and I get dopamine. Then there's Rylak Stalker's Piercing Fangs. When Bestial Wrath is active, your pet's critical damage is increased by 30%. Nothing new here really, press Bestial Wrath, do even more damage. Now on top of this, you can also spec into Wailing Arrow. I might not have gotten the dang Lego bow from Sylvanas, but at least I can use the ability a bit. Great for M+, possibly great for some raid encounters. The damage is okay, but the AoE silence is where it's at. You'll be able to talent into Dire Beast. Nothing new here, Chompy Beast that noms your target and gives you 5% haste. But wait, there's more. Seeing as these are dire times, Dire Beast now comes with up to 3 times Dire, Dire Command, Dire Frenzy, and Dire Pack. Dire Command 3-point talent, Kill Command has a 10 up to 30% chance to also summon a Dire Beast for 8 seconds, and Dire Frenzy makes them last 1 second longer, wish I could talent into that, and deals 20% increased damage. And Dire Pack, every 5th Dire Beast resets the cooldown of Kill Command and reduces focus cost as well as cooldown on Kill Command by 50% for 8 seconds. Sadly, as of now, Dire Beasts are not so dire, they're a bit unimpressive, but that might change with tuning among other things. They sadly just deal a little bit too little damage, and their haste buff doesn't stack, so having more than 1 up doesn't do a whole lot, which is sad because I'd love a little army of beasts. That being said, it might still be worth a point or two just to be able to proc Dire Beast from KC, as it'll give you the 5% haste and a tiny bit of dam, but it competes with a lot of other talents that might end up better, as it's a pretty hefty investment reaching Dire Beastie Boys. That being said, the final talent Dire Pack has a lot of potential in a Kill Commandy build, as the focus and cooldown reduction can potentially get you to a point where it works like Killer Cobra without having Killer Cobra. It's just that it's after every 5th Dire Beast instead, so tad more RNG, but still. Other than that, you get your standard boring talents like Pets deals more damage, increased maximum focus, increased barb shot damage, and things like Stomp or gaining 2 charges of barb when you pop Bestial Wrath, Murder of Crows, and Bloodshed, which is another bleed we can add to a potential dot build. Overall, the tree looks very interesting. There's some talents I'd like revamped a bit, like the Dire Beast portion to make it more interesting. I know most hunters cry at the thought of more pets, but hey, I love them until they get stuck on a pixel during all cooldowns and I stand there dismissing pet during Bloodlust like an absolute jackass. And please, for all that is good and holy, return Blink Strike to all of our pets or as a talent. This portion of the video is addressed to Blizzard. You know pets bug. You know hunters have to go through acrobatics that rival Cirque du Soleil to manage their pets on certain fights, and you know Blink Strike would solve most of it. So why don't you? Why? That being said, there's a lot of different builds you can make utilizing both the class tree and beast mastery tree, and in the end you'll probably always have a cookie cutter build, but this gives a lot more depth and more possibilities to min-max for certain type of content. Need more low target cleave? Potentially go Aswell of the Wild and KC oriented build. Need heavy AoE? Serpent Sting, Hydra's Bite for spread, bleed poison damage increased talent, Call of the Wild for barb shot spam, or perhaps throw in some death chakrams or explosive shots in the mix, cause why not? You can. And being able to drop a talent point or a few just to remove unnecessary talents for certain encounters where you might not need them. In the end, like I said, there will most likely be 1 or 2 cookie cutter builds that'll work for most content, but for players that want to min-max, there's the possibility to do so. Sure, there's some talent bloat, but it's looking very interesting as of testing it, and I hope it stays that way with even more improvements to come. Now, just the fact that we have more possibilities, more stuff to press, as well as a better defensive toolkit that we can tailor to our needs. Hopefully they manage to tune all of this so it doesn't end up as a illusion of choice, because I love min-maxing even if it's not super needed, but swapping talents, build, gear, etc. depending on fight is something I find fun. It feels rewarding even if it's a minor gain, and in the case of these talent trees you can swap it up quite a bit. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the new revamped talent trees for Beast Mastery. I'll go over Marksman and Survival in future videos as well as other classes. Let me know in the comments what you think of the new talent tree, anything you're hyped over or dislike, let me know. Don't forget the usual stuff, like, comment, subscribe, and ring that notification bell, it really helps me out. I stream progression and testing on Twitch, mostly raids on Thursdays and Sundays. Make sure to check out my Patreon if you want to help support me, my work, and my goal of upgrading my computer before Dragonflight. And make sure to check out the Liquid Women in Warcraft Discord for a supportive and safe Warcraft community. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time.